So now we are ready to go into the paramitas one by one. Oh yes. Before we do so, could you slide it down to where we did the chanting? Sorry. Yes. So once we understand what it means in relation to generosity, then it can be applied to all the rest of the paramitas. And this is taken from Maitreya's Ornament of Sutras, and it has a commentary by Asanga himself, as well as by Acharya Stiramati. Yeah, and it's interesting how the two commentaries really come together, except Acharya Asanga kind of lays it down in brief, and Acharya Stiramati seems to fill in the details about the six mituncho, six mituncho, six hindrances, or six pardon?
Discordant.
Yes, six discordant ways of doing it. So basically it is explaining the paramitas, each one of them, in relation to what are the constraints that it has to avoid. Right? And these constraints all have been presented in the form of stickiness. Right? And keeping each of the paramita from being flexible and from being from being from being concordant. From being concordant. Right? That keeps it from being concordant. Those are discordant elements. Those are being pointed out. And once we understand this in relation to generosity, then we'll be able to apply that with slight nuances, not at every point, but at certain points. That's how then we'll be able to understand it. And this is so interesting, so eye-opening in terms of what to train in, how to improve one's practice, and what loopholes to look at, like that. And how, as we improve in our practices, how the practices can grow in terms of becoming more and more complete, getting rid of the limitations one by one or pieces by pieces. So, Chanchu Sembe Chimbani, Machak, Michak, Chakwame, Chakwanyija Mainte, Machak, Michak, Chakwame. So, if you count chak, number of chaks in there, if you count number of chaks in there, how many do you see? 6 or 7? Yes, Machak, Michak, Chakwame, Chakwanyija Mainte, Machak, Michak, Chakwame. So 7 chaks, 7 ways of stickiness that one has to get rid of. Of which the first refers to manifest, manifest adversity, or manifest opposite of the respective practice. Say in the case of generosity, it would be yes, miserliness, stinginess, right? So that's the most obvious one. Machak is not be stuck in being swayed by stinginess, in being touched by stinginess. Machak. Michak. Michak is Michak is what do you call? Saying you have an occasion to engage in generosity and say, "Not today. I'll do it tomorrow." that's stickiness in the form of procrastination. Interesting, right? I mean, life is short. Why not take it up right then and there? Why put off? What guarantee do you have that you have tomorrow? So that's how it seems to convey. Like, if such a big goal you have in front of you, why not seize the opportunity that you have right here and now? And then the next stickiness, machak, michak, chapame, that is like you have an occasion, you give $1, I said, let me just be content with that. Let me just limit it to that, right? I mean, if you can push a little bit, if say you are okay with giving $3 or $4, you can limit it down to $1. Or at least if you have already made up your mind and saying, I'll give $5, but then when you reach out to your pocket, you kind of let away some dollars, and then you just come up with one, and then think. Of course, practice has to be genuine, has to be not touched with stinginess. That should not be done in the sense of competition, in the sense of for name. That would be just wastage of money. You do something out of expectation of name, fame, reputation, position, whatnot. Of course, that will go and it will help someone, but in terms of what you earn from that, more stinginess or more attachment to name, fame, your attachment grows with your letting go of your money. It's so important to understand, right? How we do things. Very often that's how things happen. In the name of big projects and whatnot. I mean, hopefully they're all done with good heart, but not necessarily that's always the case. There's always some kind of expectation behind. And when the expectation is not met, people get mad. It's like that's what they have earned. It's like in the first place, they had that, they came up with that expectation. When that is not met, I mean, it's their own making. Like, why did you extend your hand in the first place? Now you find your hand empty. And then worry, and then complain about it. My hands are empty, despite having been extended for so long. You could have just done as well by just not extending it. And now you wouldn't have this complaint to make. So it really takes understanding, skillfulness, real smartness in doing things. Like we are laying our own trap in so many cases. So that's the. So I told you this last time also. At one point, the whole Tibetan community got together to accumulate merit, and one way of doing that was to sponsor golden protrusion for the statue of Buddha. So what the Tibetan administration did was ask everyone to contribute 1 rupee and 25 paisa. 1 rupee and 25 paisa. I don't know why they asked for 25 paisa. Maybe when you say 1 rupee and 25, it kind of makes you do something like, okay, here. No, you kind of look for the chain or something. You kind of are pulled into doing something, right? And then it was not a problem for anyone. Who would not have 1 rupee and 25 paisa, which is equal to maybe how many cents? 2, 3 cents? So they collected that. Because that's how someone who knows what generosity, pure generosity should mean does. not forcing, imposing something that people may not want to do and then be forced to do. And then what good is there? In terms of spiritual energy point of view, it would not be. It would be all soiled. It would be all, in a way, adulterated. But this way of doing that is almost kind of something that you can be sure of its purity. So they did that. I still don't know why they asked for 25 paisa. If I were to do it, if I were to have say on it, I would ask for 27 paisa. Or maybe 27 and a half or something like that. Because one rupee and 25 paisa, they can easily get change. 27 would really make them work. And if you were to insist, pardon?
25, you can't get paid for change anymore. It's
No.
been a long time since you've been in India.
I see. Okay.
Are you getting a 1 rupee note of change?
Oh, I see. Okay. So see, here I go out of touch. Yeah, at that time they asked it. At that time I was in India. Yeah, they did that. Then Samno Rinpoche was the Prime Minister, or rather the President, if we were to use how the position is known today. So, yes, first is miserliness, second is, what's the second? Yes, procrastination, and then the third is, not doing it wholeheartedly, or kind of being easily satisfied with a small amount, chokshiba, right? Easily settling on a very little amount, whereas you can be very comfortably capable of giving more. Macha, micha, chakpa me. Right? And then the next, chakpa nijang mainde, which has only one chakpa, right? That is giving with an expectation of reward in return. Some strings attached. It's like, I give you this, and the next time you pull the string, it comes back to you. So it's like a string attached to what you give. I'm saying that that's not what bodhisattvas should do. It's not becoming a bodhisattva, or at least bodhisattvas should watch over themselves in how they engage it and then improve them. Not that these givings have no value. No. Each one of them, except for not giving at all, whatever amount you give with whatever, I mean, it has some value, of course. Even with reward, it's not necessarily bad. I come across this except when you give with an expectation of reward, the benefit of that will be only limited to that range, that time range. That's the reason why if you give something with an expectation for something in return for this life, since since the range of the practice goes until this life, the expectations, if they come, they will come this life. Otherwise, maybe not. That's how I understand it. That's the reason why there is so much, so much fuss, if I may say, so much fuss about 8 worldly concerns in Buddhism. So be warned against getting into its trap, and that is not even considered dharma. Dharma in the sense that the benefit of that doesn't go beyond this life. If something you do by in the name of dharma that's worthy of that name, at the very least, the benefit of that should extend beyond this life, not just limited to this life, but it should go beyond this life. So that's one way of one way of defining what is dharma and not. Not necessarily saying if you give with an expectation of reward within this life, it would necessarily be negative. Although This is one area that I have, I'm not so clear about. I am still finding some clarity and some reasonings about. Yet I think that if you keep with an expectation within this life, at least not with any sense of harming someone, but kind of in a spirit of transaction, like like. Although such transaction is, since it is not explicit, there is no guarantee that you will be, that the other one will be bound to give to you, and that you will ever get in return anything. But anyway, so in the scripture I mentioned it last year also in the Umajupa, in the Chandrakirti supplement to the Madhyamika. So anyway, there is a reference of giving something. If you give something, not with an expectation in reward of reward within this life, but with an expectation of reward in the next life, and you do so with very little compassion, and even the manner of giving it also, if that's not done well, even. That's still worth it, because the benefit of that could extend beyond this life. And what is good about this is that in the next life, when you get or not, you wouldn't know. You cannot complain. Like we would do in this lifetime, right? When we expect it, then we will be hurt and disappointed when we don't get it in return. That doesn't happen when the expectation extends beyond this life, unless one really clearly remembers. But the problem would be the other person will not remember. And in a way, if you do so, such practices, the benefits of such practices, even if it is at such a low quality, whatnot, but if at the very least, either you do that without expectation, if at all there is an expectation that extends beyond this life, then there is a chance that the benefit of that can eventually contribute even to one's attaining of liberation. And the way to make case for that is because since the benefit will extend into the next life, there is the possibility of how that could contribute to a good birth, good rebirth, and that contributing to. Otherwise, in the case of doing that with an expectation only limited to this life, it would be exhausted. It's like you came empty-handed, you did so much, and then go empty-handed. So that's the reason why there is this need of understanding the Dharma by oneself, so that one doesn't become an easy victim, easy victim at the hands of others, as well as one doesn't mess up opportunities that are presented before oneself. So where are we? Yeah, machak micha chapame chapani jama in there. That's what we dealt with. And then the next macha is, in the case of bodhisattvas, it would be unbecoming even to expect return in terms of karmic return next life. So what I'm saying is that for a bodhisattva whose aim is to attain full awakening, whatnot, it cannot afford to have one's merits that easily exhausted, that easily wasted. But at the same time, I'm saying that these ways of doing do not become naught. They do not become nothing, and that when we engage in them, they do have their benefits. Yeah, namin. So without any expectation in terms of benefits in the next life. Macha micha chawame. Chawani jama in the macha. Macha micha chawame chawani jama in the macha. So then the next micha is the first chakpa, the first stickiness is sticking to a very gross manifest, obstacle, in the form of manifest miserliness, manifest stinginess. But then the next one is to even make sure that such an act of generosity is not touched by subtle bhakcha, subtle traces, subtle latencies. It may not have come that manifest in one's mind, but if there is even a slight, pullback in the form of tendency, in the form of latency, in the form of propensity, even that is to be watched out for. Yeah, even that is to be watched out for.
Latencies of stinginess.
Yes, latencies of stinginess. Yes. So likewise, it will apply to the respective. So then we are left with the last one, right? So in the case of the last one, it has two ways. Two ways. It is understood in two ways, or not just understood in two ways. It has two aspects attached to it. Two aspects of stinginess. One is, since the practice is being pursued here in the light of Bodhisattva's ideal, one way of stickiness would be to fall back into one's own self-centeredness and kind of thinking that, letting that be influenced by his self-centeredness, even if that be for one's own self-liberation also, right? So that is one thing to watch out for. And then the last way of being stickiness, to get rid of, which is subtle. So here it kind of, if you watch, if you can see a progression or gradation of the force of stickiness that we are dealing with. First is the most obvious one, most gross one, and then it becomes subtler and subtler, subtler. And the last one is to watch out for the stickiness in the form of projecting inherent existence. To be able to undertake, say, to try to undertake, carry out the act of giving within full awareness of the action, actor, and the object, subject, object, and the action, all within the perspective of emptiness. We can see how when we act when we undertake actions of generosity, etc., if we could do that with a sense that I am a mere contingent of many things, many things, not me, right? That I'm either empty of inherent existence or kind of a mere label or mere designation. One could see how that can have an effect of kind of freeing that action of so much unwanted stickiness, unwanted coating. Unwanted coating that really goes deep into the whole body of the action. So that's it. It's beautiful, right, to be able to see, and it gives a very clear idea of how to engage in it. Of course, it will be not easy coming. It will not happen that easily. But if we watch out for them, And as we do so, we become aware of them, and we'll even become more aware of who we are. What are the mm, uh, dirts within us to work with? Which is stronger, what not? Comparison, contrast, all of those, and then we can then make a realistic effort in addressing that, and thus improve from our baby steps to eventually making a more and more and more refined, purer practice. So that's in regard to generosity. So it's important to to remember what the first attachment means, what is the second, and the line. Then I've kind of run them in one's mind, and then kind of eventually, as they become very easy to come about, and apply that. Okay, so we can go back to, oh yes, oh, how did you do this? Okay, so the paramita of generosity. So it is in this light of how a bodhisattva trains or should train, that eventually when they become well versed in it, proficient in it, well familiarized in it, then even giving up their lives can become very easy in a situation when it would be most beneficial. But in the case of giving up one's life or virtues, I don't know how that actually happens, but maybe that has to do with dedication, and then one's possessions, whatnot. That's how, when we train in this way, then that will be very easy to come about. By the way, I should, since I've already mentioned about the giving of life, I should mention that this is not recommended. Even for the bodhisattvas to do right away, to try right away. They have to wait. They may aspire to do so, but wait until a time when giving one's life would not feel any more than like getting rid of any petty possession that one may have. So until such an ease occurs, one is not supposed to actually execute that, but nonetheless train in the aspiration. Okay. So then, so in all of these practices, the main culprit, the main obstacle is, yes, attachment. We may be aware every once in a while when we are taken to task how attachment to ourselves, to this life, to positions, names, social stature, etc., gets us hooked. And it's because of being hooked that we feel the constraint. We can't fly off because we are hooked. but because of nobody's doing except oneself. And it's not that easy to get off the hook, but at this point I'm reminded of Mingyur Rinpoche's story when he went out for 4 years of retreat. At one point he almost died, and he kind of wondered whether he should return back or not. And he almost died, and he worried that he might die without getting anything done, without it. And he almost thought of going back. And then at that point he said, no, come what may, I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to pursue it. That's when he felt relieved. He said that's the occasion when he felt such an unprecedented sense of relief and peace and bliss. As he was explaining it, I was watching and trying to kind of put myself in his shoes. I said, yes, that makes perfect sense. That's like all the hooks have been taken away. The strongest hook, the strongest latch on us is our attachment, and more particularly, ultimately to our life. And when that is let go of, it's like one is, not that life goes away with that. With the hook gone, life doesn't go away, except we begin to feel much freer, and thus be able to do things much, much more, much ease and free from tension. So that was my interpretation, not that he said it, okay. So, but somehow if we look, we can very clearly see what is it that makes you uneasy and in the face of a situation. Oh, it's because of clinging, it's because of attachment. And at the same time, being in a society, particularly with families, whatnot, it is not that easy to let go, because you are not just one. Monastics can, but these days, including myself, monastics also are attached to families. They have these things to take care of, these things to take care of, and they are expected of this thing to be done. Like, oh, you are monastic, you are on Emery's payroll, you have lots of money, so where do you spend? Why not spend on me? So yes. And if you do that, then who else would you leave out? So I'm just giving example on myself, not that it is a reality. No, he is not. So that's just an example. But what I meant is, even as a monastic, it comes in the presentation like that. One of the Kadamba masters says, oh, even after having ordained, the Tibetan term is Rabjung, so becoming ordained. And actually what it literally means is Rabtu Junga means utterly away, or utterly having left behind. I mean home, right? Utterly having left one's home behind. But the master says, oh no, even having become Rabjung, there's need of becoming Rabjung again and again and again. You leave home, you come to a monastery, you attach to that, you need to leave. I mean, from your mind you have to leave that, and then you have, likewise. So there are so many things that we get attached to, that we have to be aware to kind of let go of that. So mainly it is a mental thing, right? Mental thing. Like somebody leaves home and comes and begin to live in a remote place, and then begin to have some cattle, something like that. Pardon? Yeah, cats and dogs and whatnot. It's like home away from home. It's like home away from home. Of course, there's nothing wrong with having them, but the relationship, the perspective should have now changed. Not the same thing that you thought you had left back. Otherwise, we could be carrying the same thing in a seemingly different environment, but the same stickiness. And this is so true with myself. Yes, so the Paramita of generosity in the scripture, it speaks of three ways. There could be so many ways, but one is material goods, and another is Dharma, and another is protection. Protection from fear, or protection from anything that people have difficulty with or difficulty in. So let's move So first we are dealing with the generosity of giving material things. Now from this point on, until we hit the sixth paramita, it should be easy. What do you call? Easy going. Maybe or maybe not. So relax. So snake shedding its skin. In terms of letting go, we should try to let that happen that easily. I don't think snakes, when they shed their skin, they kind of go back and then take a little bit, pull a little bit, and then come back, pull a little bit. They kind of swirl around it. They don't do that. They just get rid of it and go. May not even know that that's what they have done, or maybe they have done. Right? They shed their skin, but don't even look back. Who knows? They may, some of them, but usually. But this is just an example, right? So that's how we should train. It will come later on. How we get trapped, and how we sometimes undo our own act of generosity. We regret over that later on. We did that, and then we regret over that. In the first place, when we do that, we don't do that purely. And then later we regret over that. Oh, that's the same thing as laying a trap for oneself. I want to suffer by giving something to somebody so that I could suffer. And you can really make yourself, give yourself a difficult time. It's like nobody is doing it, you are yourself doing it, right? Likewise, such things happen. So many things happen. We suffer more in our imagination than the reality. Compared with what we can really come up with in our imagination, reality is not that bad. Oh yeah, from very petty things to so many big things, like what might happen. Sometimes we worry about things that we can't have any control at all. But this mind goes and goes and goes. If we were to really succumb to that, I mean, life would be terrible. We won't be able to go for even a single moment. What guarantee do we have that we have tomorrow? 100% guarantee? Nobody has. Looking at things, it almost looks like, I mean, think of the tragedies that happened recently, of the hurricane, how things happened unexpectedly, right? Yeah. So if we were to kind of bring them up and think like, what if, then there is no end to that. We have to learn to be realistic, accepting of the reality, and also kind of go in sync with reality. Even be okay saying, yes, that's good that I come and go, because others need room, as I was saying, right? Others need room. So that, I mean, likewise. Otherwise, if we are attached to things, it's like the thing is pulling itself away, and we are pulling it to us. And how would we succeed against nature? So yeah, not that this is not to say that the snakes do not have attachment. We have to understand the metaphors very clearly. Yeah, context is so important. We have to understand it. Yes. And then deer's lack of the sense of ownership or belonging. I don't see deers carrying their things with them when they move. and maybe they don't have any specific place to always go to. Who knows? They keep changing, right? And I haven't seen them kind of collecting something to eat and then carrying on their back. right? So that is not to say that we have to get rid of all of the belongings. Particularly as a group, we need to have, and as individuals, we have necessities also. But our relationship to that have to be healthy. When you have, you have it. When you don't have, you don't have it. Not linger after it, kind of get attached to it. When you have it, make the most use of it. Even if that means giving away or keeping to yourself, then make good use of it so that one could be of benefit to others. Yeah, so it says, in this light, when we are confronted with a beggar or someone who asks us for something, it's like really poking us. Let me check how much you can let go. So I'm saying, let me check how much you can let go. What about $10? Does it pain? Like that. So that's also an attitude that we can adopt. Even if we do not really want to give, but at least get to use the opportunity in seeing how much you are capable of allowing, how much you are not, and then look back at it and say, why couldn't I? Where else do I spend this money over? Right? How long can I keep this with me? That's the reason why for a Bodhisattva, they have to, irrespective of whether they're possessing so much thing or not, but their perspective towards them ideally should be that these belong to others. I was very moved when His Holiness tells the Tonglen president. Tonglen, by the way, is a non-profit, non-profit organization that looks after children of slum dwellers in India, particularly providing them education. They have been so successful in really providing education and in really meeting the needs of very needy people. It was started by just one monk who saw rag pickers, right? You call them rag pickers? Yeah. Saw them picking rags rag pick. What do you call them? Not pickpocket. Yeah. Rag. Those who go around and pick rags or leftovers, or India. Scavengers? Okay. Yeah, it can be anything. Okay, scavengers, yeah. And then he saw them eating just from whatever was left there, and even sharing among themselves. He was so touched, so moved. He was studying in one of the great monasteries and left his studies halfway, and then took over this work. Initially just by himself, and then gradually it grew. And yes, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's office, when they approached the office, graciously gave them seed money, all that. So at one occasion, His Holiness was invited there with an Indian political leader who was really touched by how a very simple monk, he himself doesn't look that healthy. He might himself be very easily mistaken for a scavenger, really, in how he dresses, how he looks even, not in a good shape. So the political leader was himself so touched that he right then and there released some money, a huge amount of money. At that time His Holiness says, come when you need money, that is yours. I saw that coming from Bodhisattva's precept. That's theirs, but not. They may mistake things like, oh, that money is only ours. Not only theirs, though. So whoever wants, whoever really deserves them, and who really approaches them, right, and deserves them, and then have to be careful in how much to allow or whatnot. But he said, come when you need money, that's yours. That's how Bodhisattva precepts teaches us to relate to our possessions. Lu, long, ju, kesa. Like even one's body, possession, one's virtues. The perspective, befitting perspective of Bodhisattva is that this belongs to others. This is for others. Like you have dedicated yourself for the benefit of others to the ultimate level of. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you just unnecessarily waste it away. You have to weigh the pros and cons of particular actions, because ultimately, that's how one is going to serve the others, not just merely wasting it away. But the perspective should be like that. That's almost like a will. Bodhisattvas already have a will written. Not specifying, saying this goes to this goes to this, but a will written there. It's like they go, I mean, without any attachment to anything. And it's a will written, like, it's others. And then I feel very impressed by the system of writing will, living will, right, that you have in place. It's so good. But at the same time, irrespective of will, no will, there should be this unstickiness there, to the extent possible. And that way we would ourselves suffer less. But that's not the whole point. If one could really do it well, then a small petty thing, how we relate to that could really make a big, big difference. Yes. The third one is a stingy householder. It could be a stingy monk, nun, anyone. So when I use the metaphors, they have to be understood in perspective. Like I was saying, oh, not that snakes are very good at. They have their own burden of attachment. So this relates to a story of how somebody saw a householder very stingy, kind of really sticking to even the petty things, not letting go of whatnot, had hard time letting go of even the slightest thing, even the not necessary things. We can see, right, how we hoard things, almost like rats and ants and like yeah, how for years together things just remain unused in our houses. That's really not being smart. Make sure if that's going to help benefit you or not. If not, give it to someone who can use it. Or at least, what do you call? Organize even, pardon? A garage sale, or organize collection systems, or even garage sale also. That's one way of doing it. You either get very little for big things that you can let go of. I mean, those are all what you call grades of generosity that we can exercise. So it is said that this stingy whoever, it could be anyone, but I'm just taking it straight from the scripture. So there's this stingy householder who has really difficulty letting go of anything, and how he was taught to train in generosity was giving from one hand to another. When it is in this hand, he kind of identified with this hand. This hand possesses it, and you go in like this, and then it shifts the ownership, right? And kind of if one has some degree of the stickiness going off, and that's how eventually he became a big donor who had no difficulty whatsoever in letting go of things. And then who was? Oh yeah, there's even a greedy bhikshu, greedy Geshe Dadul. Not just Dadul, Geshe Dadul, Namgyal. So he was, so there was a bhikshu who was really stingy and didn't want to let go of anything, let alone letting go of anything. He wants everything that others have. I want. Always say, there are some people who would always just readily say, it would be like so natural for them, may I have it? May I have it? So this was one of them. So he would say, may I have it? May I have it? So that clearly shows that he had difficulty letting go of anything, let alone letting go. He wants things. It's so attached to things. It's like when there's something, when there's an iPhone, it's kind of... So somebody has to train that person. So again, in terms of training, in terms of really having an effect, it really takes someone really sincere, meaning, yet at the same time skillful, and if possible with some extra level of understanding, of sensing. Anyway, so luckily he came across someone who said, I won't give you when you ask for it. When you say I don't want, then I'll give you. He had difficulty really saying I don't want, because he was worried that if you say you don't want, then others might not keep. But he had to really, what do you call, pull up. Pardon? Yes, he has to really work on it. He has to really work on it. Had difficulty, and he would say, worrying that if I say I don't want, then the person might take me literally. At least the person who was training was really meaning. So you say, I don't want, then he gets it. Okay, I don't want. So every time he says, I don't want, he gives it. Eventually, he even became known as I don't want. What's your name? I don't want. You are a bhikshu. Yes, I am bhikshu. What's your actual bhikshu name? Bhikshu, I don't want. So not only he became known by that name, but really, he actually trained in not wanting what others have, rather rejoicing in their having what they have and not running after it. It's so interesting how we work with our mind. Mind can be so tricked. It's like, of course, sometimes we'll be what do we call, caught in such a strong rage, and then just an idea clicks. It's like whoosh, it releases. It's like a knot, just the right knot, undone. Whereas if that escapes being undone, then the tension can be stronger and stronger and stronger. But it's not easy for ourselves to really know, and others also to know. That's why in the scriptures it keeps reminding that others who could really make a difference should be should be refined enough, should be refined enough, should really mean to do that, really look thoroughly, take that task seriously. And then an expert benefactor. This is about Geshe, Geshe Atisha. He was in Tibet. And yes, Domtempa was serving him. Domtempa, the great lay practitioner, lay disciple of Geshe. His heart spiritual son. But, and Geshe Atisha Dipamkar was in Tibet, and he was teaching, and everybody was moved by his teaching, and they would make offerings. So by the end of the day, there would be hordes of things, like maybe sacks and sacks of grains, and maybe some even livestock also, but sacks and sacks of grains, barley, whatnot. So the day would be so long, Domtempa would just help keep somewhere, and he would go for the night and then come back tomorrow, rushing to really make sure those are in place and really goes to whoever needs it or whatever. By the time he comes back, everything will be gone. I said, Geshe, what happened with this? And he he showed some concern about whether those got looted or he got deceived or tricked or whatnot. Say, don't worry, I am an expert in in giving away. And he would just keep it there and then don't even bother to say who he gave what. And then next, oh yeah, you may have noticed there's a slight clue there. instead of the circle, there is a square there. Oh, that is for me, and for you also. In this particular scripture that I was talking about, the example, or in the course of studying this, going through this, I pick up so many Tibetan technical terms also. One of them is this Tito. Tito, I'm not using it in any English or other language. I'm using it in Tibetan. The Titos. Tito's reaction to butter. When I read this refers to an animal who is a nocturnal animal and has a special relish for greasy food, but also releases bad odor. So I thought, could this be skunk? But this is up in the air. We cannot finalize. I don't know if there were skunks around that time or not. Pardon? Pardon? I see. But here it says it looks like a dog. Looks like it. Pardon? No, not butterflies. It looks like. Pardon?
You said it was in the sky.
Oh, okay. What I meant is, in terms of what it actually is, it's up in the air. Oh. Actually, you are right. What I said was, what it is up in the sky. What could be up in the sky? Not dogs. Of course, dogs cannot be up in the sky unless you throw them. So you are right. It is up in the sky, so it must be butterfly or seagull or what. Okay, so I have another option.
Up for grabs.
Pardon?
Up for grabs.
Yeah, it's up for grabs. Oh, okay. Now I got it. Oh, that's so good. Okay. We indeed are in catawampus. And we are cordywampling. Okay. I will use that in the right place. Cattywampus and Cordywample. Again, that's also up for grabs. Of course, up in the air, so that now anyone can get it. Whoever succeeds in getting it can get it, right? Since it is up in the air, anyone can grab it. Oh, okay, that's so good. See, that's the yoga. Laughter yoga. I do yoga in my room, but I hardly get to do the laughing yoga. I feel worried that others might get disturbed or may think that, oh, what has gone wrong with this only monk in the apartment? Poor monk, he is so alone. What must be going through him now? Yeah, this is but natural. But, what do you call? This is but, what do you call? Natural for someone who spends all this time 24/7 alone, even in the office also. It's just being like in a cave. Nobody comes, you just kind of slightly close it, and you are to yourself. Except during lunch, we get together. But otherwise, nobody dares to come into each other's office because that would be disturbing the time, right? So then they might get, oh, sure, what else could happen to this guy, to this miserable guy? Now he's gone crack. So that's why I don't do the yoga, the laughing yoga. Otherwise, the others I do. So this is good. I get the supplies for many months together. Okay. Okay. Pardon?
Is there more to the story about the Tito other than what it is?
I see. Yeah. Tito's reaction to butter. When it sees butter, it can't control itself. It goes, what do you call? Topsy-turvy. It goes frenzy, right? It just cannot control itself. Everything, every cell is now roused like that. So yeah, I should tell you that the clue, because it is used in the square, is to show the opposite. Right? How it can be trained, how it could be spoiled, how the opposite or the the reverse part of generosity would look like. So saying, watch out for such a reaction when not necessary to everything, but some things. Sometimes we may even say, oh, this book, right, this text, and we can come up with so many reasons why I need to be really trembling in getting it, right? We can rationalize that, and that's when we go, Tito, in relation to butter. Okay, and so goes the same with the dog's reaction to meat. Oh, when it comes to meat, and the honor of so many years begins to fiddle with it. Oh, what was that? Quiver. What, the dog will quiver?
At the sight of meat.
Yeah, at the sight of meat, it will quiver, and then if the owner kind of tries to touch it or do something, even the familiar honor will be now object of grrring, object of grrring. Okay. Pardon? Okay. Then comes newlywed bride's condition. This may have to do. Look. Oh, no. It's safe. No, I'm not making up. This is a state from this text. This is a state from the scripture. I can show you. I see. What is wrong there? Nothing. What? It is projection.
So in our culture,
Yes, please. Yes, educate me.
I think in the culture around the scripture, the idea is the female is more desirous, but in our culture,
no, you presumed that. No.
but in our culture,
Okay.
The cliche is that the bridegroom is very eager and desirous, and the bridegroom is somewhat timid.
I see.
So that's the caricature.
Okay.
So that's why we're looking at them. What do you mean by bride's conditions?
Yes. Whereas bride's condition can be so many, right? You are kind of tunneling it into just one thing, right? Okay, so what it is that when a newlywed bride goes into new home, she would have so many presents in the form of clothes, So much so that she would readily feel like I can let go, I can dispose all of my old clothes, and she does this generously. Who wants it? Who wants it? Who wants it? Right? As time goes by, the new ones become old. There were even some that she had borrowed. They need to be returned back. And the families are not getting around in making new clothes. So the new clothes not coming, old clothes getting away again and again and again. She's left to one pair. And even began to worry about it. And even goes to who got her old clothes, trying to get them back. That's what could happen if we don't watch over our act of generosity. What we had done could be undone. Undone in a, if I may say, please laugh, okay? Undone in a bigly way. Really so. Yeah, bigly way.
He's studying with a new English teacher.
Baseball, big league.
Big league. Big league. It's a Trumpism. It's a Trumpism.
Okay, I surprised you.
You said big league instead of big league.
Now I get it.
You said big league when he meant big league.
Okay, big.
We won bigly. So in a big way. Okay. So anyway, we could end up really undoing our generosity, and that too in a very, very big way. So likewise, when we enter into monasticism, into monastic community, we kind of are really upbeat about, yes, going from home to homelessness. That's actually what it is. And you kind of think like, yes, this is what monk and nun is supposed to do. Let go. Okay, you take this, you take this, you take this, you take this, you take this. Right? Eventually, as time goes by, your own same this monkhood, nunhood begins to feel like the usual thing, nothing that's reminding of anything that one should be living up to, whatnot, and then begins to bring back the same, force of attachment, whatnot. And then, whereas the condition is not as abundant as before, and then you begin to worry about that, and wonder about that, and even go to those whom you have given to kind of get them back, and some get some debts returned, etc., etc. So that's what could happen if we don't watch our and then surgical grafting of body parts. Just read it as it is. If you're going to do this, then I will not be able to finish the slides. Pardon? Oh yeah, it is.
What does it mean in the scriptures context?
Oh yes. You mean to engage in generosity, you compromise on your morality. Oh yes, right? This is, but you mean to engage in generosity and you compromise on your morality. Like you allow yourself to steal something so that you could give someone. Like you are making a big stride here. Yes, I'm being generous. Whereas what you have done is cut from one part and put on one part. You end up having a wound. And then in the case of compromising morality, it's even more serious. That's the basis on which all other development have to be founded on. And so goes the same as throwing a party with robbed money. Okay, so those are considered to be not not the right way of being generous, or else those are ways by which one could keep from growing in one's practice of generosity, whereas the earlier ones are how to train in them. Right? Okay. So we move to the next. Okay, how much time? Yes, now the next one is generosity of Dharma giving. Yeah. There was once a bhikshu who was in wilderness, a remote place, and all of a sudden the king and his retinue pays a visit. He didn't have anything, didn't have any proper kitchenwares to make tea for them, etc. So what he did was, in accordance with their own understanding level, he gave Dharma teachings. And he did so with respect, without a sense of kind of looking down upon them. And how he did that is he reminded himself of the Buddha nature in each one of them. It's almost like everyone has the potential, not just the potential Buddha nature, it's almost like everyone has a miniature Dharma kaya within them. And when you think of others from that light, and particularly when one has this, special familiarization with the Dharma, what it means to you, how it really is the actual refuge, etc., then kind of looking at others from that perspective, from that undeniable, perspective, then one would have no choice but to develop a sense of respect, sense of value, preciousness towards them. It's out of that sense he then shared Dharma, meaning to only realize its potential as just a means of not giving a lot, but just a means of facilitating dusting of the Dharmakaya within them. So that's how, when we share Dharma, we should do so, not being carried away by ego, by that I know it all, you don't. Not like that. That would be then undoing it right then and there. It's like doing it, undoing. We have a saying, Geshe laksu. We make a print with our legs, and then the hand comes right after, undoes it, and then makes a print and undoes it. At the end, there's no print at all. Nothing is left there. It felt like you did a lot, left so much imprint, but there was nothing left. Geshe laksu. Puts print, deleted by hand. That's how it could happen. And more importantly, such way of sharing Dharma will not have real impact. More than not, it's not what is heard, but what is seen, how it is presented, how it is felt, how it is embodied, right? So that's where one has to strive, and then share Dharma when you do with such a perspective. And in terms of seeing them as holding Buddha nature, intact Buddha nature, is, at least from a Buddhist perspective, something that's universal. And that really is precious, in that, yes, they could be the ones, who knows, even before us, to generate bodhicitta, because they have the seed for that, and could be as worried, concerned, and working for us, for myself. So, thinking along those lines, it will really be able to pull up a genuine entrenched sense of respect, out of which then one would feel even privileged to share the Dharma, and honored to share the Dharma, and even served to get this opportunity, rather than be carried away by one's own ego and one's own blindness. And then the next one is, when we recite texts, like so also goes with any other Dharma activities that we do, we try to do that with a sense of compassion towards others, with a sense of love, compassion. Compassion not to be mistaken for feeling pityness, but rather a sense of real sense of concern towards others. And when we do that with a sense of compassion and whatnot, how we do that will be affected. Like when we are reciting text, if that's the right thing to do, then we recite it in such a way that it is clear, clearly uttered, etc., so that whoever may be around, humans, non-humans, could hear them clearly and benefit from that. And then the next one, yes, again, it's a squire. Yes, appearing to laugh, though from hair, moustache, lips being burned. If one is wearing moustache, right, and beard, and somehow it got burned, it would look very awkward to familiar people, right? It even seem like the person is constantly laughing. So what happened was, there was a group of people who meant to rob something, and somehow the community got alerted, and they gathered forces against them, and they succeeded in cornering them. And they cornered them, and then eventually pushed them into forest. Unfortunately, they had no other choice but to burn the forest. Many of them got burned. Some escaped, but escaped with a price. Their beard, their mustache, their lips got burnt. When somehow in the nook of in the middle of night they succeeded in sneaking back to their home, and after night when they woke up, the children looked to the father, and said, "Father, what happened? You really changed. You're always laughing." The father had to admit, "No, it's not from laughing. I'm not laughing. I got burned." So what does this mean? Yes, what it meant is, when you share Dharma, you check your motivation and do so properly. Otherwise, although outwardly you would look like laughing, sharing Dharma, right? Outwardly you would look like you being kind, laughing, which means sharing Dharma, doing good, right? The right thing to do. But in actuality, something else could be happening. Like, you could be corrupted in your motivation. You could be just merely making a show of being concerned, of being of service to others, but in reality, only with a what do you call? With a ulterior motive of serving one's own needs, one's own desires, whatnot. So, if possible, one should be able to admit that. If not, at the very least, one would witness it. Others may say, "Oh, you're teaching one," but in reality, you wouldn't have that reason to really rejoice in it, because after all, you were not. You're corrupting, right? So that's what would happen if we do not if we do not pursue even such a holy task as teaching Dharma, sharing Dharma, really making that deep, real difference, we could end up ourselves suffering more from doing that. That could benefit others, but you oneself will be suffering. And instead of taking one step ahead, one could have taken 2, 3 steps behind. So that was about it. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. Yes, look at that. This is the golden lion. Usually in the society, people of holy family, people of royal family, people of higher ranks are expected to be of service to others. Right? People in position, particularly as leaders, and also in the olden times, members of the royal family, just from the very birth in those families and going about doing things later in their life, they are expected to be of service to others. That's what bodhisattvas are expected by others. And we have to remember that. So that's what the message is. One has to remember that one has chosen the path to be of service to others, to be some kind of a refuge to others. And one has to always remind oneself that one should live up to that. Otherwise, it would be a double standard. You say you have bodhicitta, but what you actually do is abuse others or take advantage of others. In terms of now, that's what one's actual attitude, perspective should be. But in terms of what actually you do has to be in proportion to your capacity, not push beyond that. One can aspire to do more, but be realistic in how much I can do. That part has to be very clear. Aspiring for something and thereby developing inner capacity towards that is one thing. But in terms of actually doing, acting out, the sense of concern for others has to be in proportion, in sync with your own capacity. Otherwise, that could backfire. But nonetheless, one should always live up to this expectation of others, expectation of others, as well as living up to what one has chosen to be, in terms of always being ready there in the service of others, as others' benefactor, in terms of spiritual guidance, etc. The second one, a monk in a danger zone. In how you present yourself, not in a fake sense, but how you train yourself should come up to such thing that when others see you, they see you in the light of what you are practicing. They see you reflective of what one tries to do, what one strives to achieve. And if we could do that, just by the mere fact that we have changed but by the mere fact that we have changed our attire, changed how we look in terms of cutting hair. When I first came to US, I thought I would really stand up because I have a trimmed hair. I was completely mistaken. It was almost like a fashion. All that stood out was my robes. But that, not on Mardi Gras Day, not on Halloween Day. On Halloween days, I had the easiest time going around. People think that, oh, trick or treat, yeah, people accept me. Pardon? Yeah, free candy. Or else I could drink, right? Sometimes at workplace, I would tell people, finally the day has come. When it is Halloween, I say, finally the day has come. I have been waiting for the whole year, dressed up, waiting. Finally the day has come. They would all really have a big laugh. You are funny. So we have changed. We have voluntarily shaved our hair and changed clothes. And thus, from how we practice what we are expected to practice, if we could live up to our standard, and of course at our own pace, but at the same time striving. This is very important in terms of spiritual practice. This is not something to be left to nature to come. Sometimes people say, why don't you try compassion? It doesn't come naturally. I said earlier, right? It doesn't come. This is not something that you can wait to come naturally unless you fake it first, unless you contrive to do so. So you have to make efforts and whatnot. But then, as time passes, one should see improvement. Day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. There should be an improvement. Improvement, male in terms of one's inner quality, so that the physical appearance of change, difference, can really kind of, cope up, can really line up with what you have developed, Because in a way, the very fact that we have shaved our head and changed our clothes and have taken Bodhisattva vows or whatnot, kind of is a generous offer of protection. We are there assuring that at the very least we are not there to harm. If it is within our capacity, we are going to benefit you. So that part is something that we have the capacity to project, to convey, and that part we should try to do a better job in really conveying and living up to it. There's a story here behind this. I didn't give the story, so you didn't laugh here, right? As I said, monk in a danger zone. There was an area which is considered to be very dangerous. Everybody's going through it. They have to, but they don't want to. And they're really wary about what happens, who they might come across. All of a sudden they sense a movement, presence of life. So what is it? They conjured up so much, like could be this. Finally they see a monk. That's a monk. And they would even, instead of running away, they could be expected to come to you and then ask for protection, kind of feel really relieved. That's how it should be. That's how we should live up to. We have a particular responsibility in doing that. A lion by the name of Yidam Ten. So this is the opposite one, right? But then this is a story of where somebody takes advantage of a monk's attire, look, and kind of takes that look on. Pardon? Imposter. Yeah, an imposter, become an imposter, and wreak havoc, create damage. So in the scripture there it says such, it could be imposters or else it could be low quality monks, nuns, whatnot also. But in the scripture it uses the term, it uses an imposter. saying that the greatest damage to Dharma can be brought not by other forces, outside forces, but from within the community. And those need to be watched out. They could be seen giving teaching, they could be seen capable of giving teaching and coming in the appearance of someone capable of doing so, and someone doing so as a usual practice, but in actuality maybe doing hurt, doing harm. So it says that one has to watch out for such elements and do one's best in addressing them, in calming them, in teaching them. But the story here is, remember we talked about how Bodhisattva, when we train so well, could be retained and recalled in the next lives also. But somehow, when something goes wrong in between karmically, that we first had to undergo a lower, undergo the result of a lower karma and be born as animal. But nonetheless, still they could retain the elements of bodhicitta, and that could even be reflected in their features, in their physical conditions. Or else, some bodhisattvas can even come in the form of animals and do the service, whatnot. So there is this story of a lion by the name of Idam Ten. It has a golden, golden fur. Pardon? Yeah, golden mane, and the whole body too. And so he was very tamed. Was not carnivorous, but rather herbivorous.
Oh, he wasn't carnivorous. He was an herbivore. Herbivore.
Pardon? Yeah.
Herbivore.
He was a herbivore.
Herbivore.
Herbivore, not carnivore. Okay. And not just that, he would serve a Namgyal, a solitary realizer. That was a time when Buddha, actual Buddha, emanation Buddha, was not around. And there were some lingering arhats and solitary realizer arhats there who were doing their best in serving others. So it is very interesting. When we speak of arhats and shravakas, whatnot, we sometimes tend to kind of think of them to have no compassion at all. That is very, very wrong. All we say is that they may not have pulled up great compassion to the extent of really taking on the responsibility or shouldering the responsibility for others to the extent of sacrificing their attainment of liberation. But nonetheless, they are compassionate, concerned. They practice the four immeasurables, whatnot. So he was compassionate. He was doing his best in serving the inhabitants. And this lion was serving him as his attendant. Maybe picking up fruits. He was eating himself, fruits and roots and whatnot. And he was serving him. Somehow a hunter noticed him from far, was really, really impressed by the mane, the golden fur, very outstanding, unique. He all of a sudden he got into this thought that if I could kill this, I could earn a lot from the skin, from the hide, from the fur, from the hide. So he killed when the lion was asleep by pulling the arrow. But as soon as the arrow with the poison struck him, it woke him up. And he opened his eyes, and all he saw was someone in the monk's robe. And he says, earlier he knew that that's where the arrow must have come, because that was all there was. And he, for a while, thought of reacting to it, but then stopped himself, saying, "No, this is someone in monk's robe, and someone in monk's robe is wearing a sign of someone on the path of liberation. And doing any harm for them would be detrimental to myself also, and also to others who may be benefiting from him." So he kind of just swallowed the thought in, and then he passed away. So the hunter got his hide and then went to the king and asked for money for that. The king looked at it. Somehow he saw in some scriptures saying that when you see animals with unique fur, with golden-like fur, those could be bodhisattvas. So all of a sudden he thought of that. Oh no, I cannot be accomplice. I cannot be an accomplice in this by buying it. But then the hunter pushed, said, no. Even if you can give me very little. Then the king gave in and then gave him something. But asked on a condition, saying, what actually you saw when you killed that person? Did anything special happen? Yes. The lion uttered some lines. Allah, something soha. He uttered that, and then rain fell on him. Of course, in the scriptures it would say rain of flower fall, right? It could be snowflake or even actual flower, who knows. So he shared that. And then the king was very touched and said, that must be a bodhisattva in animals' form. And he made a point in kind of making a big, big procession in the town, showing it off. And people were touched, they all paid respect, all of that. So in the scripture, it only shares this story, but then at the end it says that yes, we have to be watchful and mindful that if we don't live up to our standards, and then we could be doing more harm than not to the same Dharma that we cherish so much. And likewise, we should be watching out to others who could be in such a position. These are real enemies of the Dharma, like that. And then the scripture ends saying, the lion at that time was Buddha Shakyamuni. The king was, I think, Maitreya. And, And yes. When the king asked what special things happened, and the hunter said he uttered these lines, then the king wondered what these words might mean. So he sent his ministers to a sage to decipher the meaning of it. And then the sage said, yes, all it says is, it expresses full respect and appreciation to anyone in monk's garb, thinking that those are on the path of service to themselves and service to others, likewise. And so that's how the king became convinced in what he had seen in the text, lining up to what he's seeing up front. So the sage is Sariputra. The hunter was, who else could that be? Devadatta.